Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Miracles Global event. I am Ramah Leith, the host and creator of this beautiful event. Today, I am excited to introduce Janet Doerr. Janet is a medical intuitive, master energy healer, and ascension guide. Janet uses her multidimensional gifts of perception, deep connection with the company of heaven, and masterful use of a wide range of healing techniques to provide transformative results for her clients. People who work with Janet Doerr receive rapid shifts in health conditions, regaining a peaceful state, improvements in relationships, and feeling empowered. Janet offers many programs which support her clients to identify and transmute the root cause energies of underlying health conditions and life experiences. Janet has supported over 1,800 individual clients from 43 countries. And Janet's beautiful topic today is unlocking your healing miracle. Welcome, Janet.
Hey, thank you, Ramah. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here with your audience and talk about the fun of creating and receiving miracles in our lives.
We're so excited to hear from you. I know you've got so much gold to share with the audience and how to have that mindset, bring in those miracles, bring in the healing, just so much to share. So you've had your own healing miracle. Would you mind telling the audience about how that came to be?
You bet. And in truth, I've had many healing miracles. But the one I wanted to start with was earlier in my life. I was early 20s, had married my husband, and we'd moved to Canada. So I was a little stressed out. I'd lived prior to that in Oakland, California, and now I'm in a sleepy little town in British Columbia of 2,000 people and going through a bit of culture shock. So I decided that what would be really helpful for me would be to go get active. So to get out in the mornings and start running. Beautiful little town and on a lake. So I thought, okay, good. I'll just do a little running loop. So I started doing that in short order, even though I didn't run far. In short order, my Achilles tendon on the left side of my body was aching and aching and aching, and to the point where putting any weight on it was really painful. So I go off to see the doctor, and we do various things, ice, elevation, at one point even put a cast on it, and I hobbled around on that for a while, none of which really changed the pain that was there. So he referred me to a specialist, an orthopedic specialist. So I go drive up the road 45 minutes to the next bigger town and see this specialist. And he does an examination and he tells me, oh, the problem here is very simple. You were born with your left Achilles tendon, which is the size of a pencil. That's undersized. And he said, notice here your right Achilles tendon is more like this big, the size of a forefinger. And he said, this is normal size, and this little pinky tendon over here on the pencil-sized tendon on the other one is pretty small. So you've been running, and so you jarred it, and it's stretched, and this is the pain that you've got. And so I'm asking, so what's to happen? And he said, well, because it's undersized, it's highly likely it will tear at some point. You could just step up a curb, and it might just tear and rip or even break because it's so small. And he said, in that case, then you'd come and see me and I'd do surgery and stitch you back up, but you'll never be the same again. I'm 23 at the time, and I'm going, oh, this is not a good outcome. So I go, well, so he's saying there's nothing to do. You take painkillers and stay off of it, do what you've been doing. I'm driving away and I'm thinking, this just doesn't sound like a great outcome. And then I remembered that I'd been instructed in a technique to heal. So, of course, me going to that conference and getting the lecture was no coincidence in terms of the timing of me going to the conference and learning. So what did I learn? I went to a conference at Whistler in British Columbia, beautiful spot. in the conference facility. And Dr. Lee Pulos, who was a psychologist, and I say was because he's no longer with us on the earth plane, remarkable being, but he's transitioned. He was very interested in peak performance. He had actually been hired by the Canadian Olympic team to work with Olympians who are in training to help them improve their performance using psychology and meditation and visualization. So he was telling about how he would work with them and they have them relax and get into the mode of they were having their peak performance with their outstanding time, whether it's a bobcat run or a downhill skiing run or whatever it might have been, a swimmer, and help them visualize and feel that they were already performing at that peak level. So that is retraining their mind, their body, their muscles, everything. So they're practicing perfection as they are choosing it. They're practicing perfection. So then he also told us in his talk that he'd also been very curious about people that were doing peak performance in other ways, creating healing miracles. So he literally traveled the world. He'd hear about somebody that shrunk a tumor and it just disappeared, or they did this, or they regrew something in their body that was missing. And he said the thing, and he'd ask them what they were doing because he was really curious to know what was their process. He learned from these various different interviews that there was a pattern and that it was very similar to what he was doing with the Canadian athletes, which was they were visualizing and imagining the perfection so that that tumor wasn't there, or something that was missing in their body was there, it had regrown. And then they would be full intent on that. They do a little meditation, focus on that they've already created. And in some cases, he'd say they would imagine they had a little helper who would go into that part of the body who would work on it, take away that tumor and haul it off. So with this memory of this process that he had shared with us, I said, well, I can do that. Other people are doing it. I can do that. What's the big deal? And so I then used the process that he said. Now, I had already been elevating my ankle 3 to 4 times a day for 15 minutes in order to take stress off of it and let it rest. So I already had that practice time. So I thought, well, I'll use the process that he described. And he was teaching people progressive relaxation. So taking muscle group at a time, tensing it up, like starting with the face, tensing every muscle in the face, and then relaxing, and tensing the hands, the fists, and relaxing, and then the arms, and so forth. So he taught that that was the first step, progressive relaxation. Then breathing in white light. And at that time, I had no meditation practice. I didn't know what this was all about. But breathing in white light and breathing out something that, however you saw it, something that was less than pristine perfection of white light. So in my case, I said, well, I'll breathe out gray smoke. So I do the muscle tensing and relaxing. So that's getting me in a more relaxed state. Then I breathed in white light, breathed out what I saw as gray smoke. And then I chose an image, a visualization for what needed to happen with that little pencil thin tendon. And my visualization was that the tendon was like a column of bricks and it was too small of a column. So if the tendon was like a column of bricks, then of course I needed a little bricklayer. So I imagined a little guy with a trowel and I'd send him on down my leg and down. He'd grab a brick and he'd slather on some mortar and he'd apply a brick to the column of bricks and grab another brick, slather on some mortar, put it down. I can still see him to this day with his little pointy trowel, working on my body. And then my 15 minutes would be over and I'd get on with life. When it was aching, I'd get back and sit and elevate and do my process. I did that for 5 weeks. 3 times a day, sometimes 4 times a day, depending on how much pain I had and how frequently I was really motivated to get it elevated. And at the 6-week point, I was supposed to go back and see the specialist. So I went in my car and drove up. But at the 5-week point, I just sort of forgot about my ankle and my tendon. It wasn't bothering me anymore. I just got on with life. So I went off to see the specialist, and he comes in the room and immediately, oh, I remember you, recognizing my face, goes straight to my left tendon, palpates it as he's asking me, how are you? And I said, great. And he looks really confused. And then he goes to the right leg, and then he goes back to the left leg, and now his jaw is kind of going slack because he can remember clearly this is the young woman who had the pencil thin tendon, and something is different because he's even wondering, is he looking at the right ankle, correct tendon, the correct ankle? And so as his mouth was kind of dropping, I said, so maybe I should tell you what I've been doing. And so I described that I'd gone to this conference, and this man is working with the athletes, and he described a healing technique people are using around the world to shrink tumors and grow things. And I thought, well, I'll just do that. Because I said, you told me what I needed to know, which is that it was too thin. But then you also told me that it would break and I'd have to get surgery. And as I drove away, I just thought, well, that's not a really good outcome, and I don't want to choose that. So this is what I've been doing. And he's still just listening, kind of baffled that I'm describing this, but he's the one who's checked my leg. Now, the interesting thing is, all the time I was doing this, I never once, other than the first time I was in his office, where he had me feel my left Achilles tendon and compare it and feel the right one, I never once checked on it. I never once said, how's it going? Is it growing? Didn't check on it. In part, that was because I was in a meditative state when I was doing the process, and also because I had things I needed to do in my life. And, the 15 minutes to 20 minutes of sitting with the elevation was already, not getting the dishes done and not getting the laundry done and not getting me to work. So I just really didn't have time. So then I carried on. So that was my healing miracle. I regrew my Achilles tendon from the size of a pencil back to the size of a normal one, the size of my right Achilles tendon, which he showed me, and you can feel your own. It's roughly the size of an index finger. So I grew mine from pencil thick to this in 5 weeks. I didn't take a supplement. I didn't change my diet. I didn't know anything about all of that at the time. I simply used the process that I was taught in full faith that if other people were doing it, I could do it too. And I think if you all remember how you felt in your early 20s, we feel pretty powerful. It's like when we chose to do something, we just said, I can do this, I'm going to do this, and set goals and moved on in our life and accomplished things in our early 20s.
That is a beautiful story. I think our bodies are just so amazing, and they are so resilient, and they can heal, and the limitations that have been put on them are not it's not our body's fault. It's what society's told us is possible. And so having that experience where you were so open to receive that message and to apply that to your body without any fear or reservations, and just then releasing it, allowing it to do what it needed to do without any expectations. I think that's so beautiful. In helping other people, I mean, this is something we all can do. We all have this ability to heal ourselves. What, from that story, or, just any other thoughts about that, how do you instruct people to be able to do that for themselves?
Well, when I look back on, what did I actually do? The number one was I made a choice. I had information. I was having a health experience, and I said, this will not do. I do not choose to have pain with every step of my left leg for the rest of my life, nor do I choose to just deal with it and say, well, this is it. This is what I got stuck with. and wait for it to break when I stepped off a curb or something. So having a clear desire and intention, saying this, so I no longer aligned with a label or a diagnosis or a description. You were born with an undersized tendon. Okay, well, that was truth, but that wasn't something I was choosing to hold in place. So I think the first thing was that we can all do, and I work with clients around this, is to make a choice. Okay, we're having an experience, a health condition or a life condition, but we'll, for the sake of this, we'll focus on health. We have something going on in our health, and we're, instead of putting more energy into it and saying, well, I have this label. I saw a doctor and he says, this is what's going on, tendonitis, right? Inflammation of the tendon. Well, that doesn't tell you why you're having it, nor does it really give you any tools to shift. It just gives you a label. And then people will often say, well, I have this. Well, how can we not have something while we're saying we have it? So one of the keys is to not, yes, you've had an experience, a doctor described the experience to you, but I will say an awful lot of disease labels end in itis. And what is that? Itis means inflammation. So what is arthritis? Is it truly a disease? No, the label says you have inflammation in your arthra. Or bursitis, you have inflammation in your bursa. Or colitis, you have inflammation in your colon. It doesn't tell you why. It doesn't say, here's what you do to reduce the inflammatory condition. It just gives you a label. So the first thing is don't hang on to those labels, because you can't not have it and have it at the same time. Not getting attached to the label and then making a choice. So in the case of, and I did go through the arthritis experience starting about when I was 50 or so, osteoarthritis, my hip joint started falling apart, getting incredibly painful. There wasn't a birth defect of anything going on, but inflammation had rooted in. And I did have one total hip replacement at only the age of 52, which is like a crazy time to be having a joint surgery like that, but I did. And then afterwards, as I was healing, and I pretty much was at that time thinking, well, now I'm going to have the second one. But I said, no. Suddenly, sort of like, wait a minute, I can heal myself. I remember, because I remembered this experience that I'd had. And I said, well, if I can grow a tendon in 5 weeks, goodness, I can heal my hip joint, which will need new cartilage and will need juicing up. And if the bones are pitted, then they'll need to get smoothed and so forth. Kind of reacquainted myself with the truth again when I said, wait a minute, I can heal myself. And at the time, I had many other things going on. When I was about 50, my memory had declined. I had put on weight, lots of things. So I had a whole list. But I started with, what do I want to experience in my health? In the case of the tendon back then, I said, I want a normal tendon, full size, as big as a forefinger. In the case of the arthritis experience, it was like, well, I'm choosing to have a flexible hip, which supports me well, and I can run up and down the stairs, get down on the floor, get up, grandchildren, and have strength and flexibility. And the joint would be, I like to call my joints juicy joints, that they're juicy and they're flexible and they support me well. The step that I used back when, and have used on any other health experience I've had since, is, okay, what's going on? What am I aware of? Seeing a doctor can be very helpful because they can give you information about what's going on inside and what's affected. And then you can go online. So I had pneumonia. They showed me an x-ray. So I got to see, okay, some of my lungs have got all this black stuff. I could tell they were full of mucus because I'm coughing it up and can't breathe. So in those cases, I didn't do what I did in my 20s. I relaxed. I took the antibiotics they prescribed because I was pretty clear at the time, as involved as my lungs were, that I might have died if I hadn't done that. So now I don't prefer antibiotics as first line of defense for anything, but if you cannot breathe, it's pretty serious. So, getting some help down in there can be helpful. But I kept imagining, okay, I have clear lungs. I'm breathing deeply. I've completed this experience. And in the case of pneumonia, what I learned was there was all this emotional energy, grief, from the ages, past lives, ancestral. And I'd learned by that time that grief is the energy, the emotion that we store in the lungs if we haven't processed it. I did have pneumonia in my 30s, and I didn't have that awareness at the time, but I gradually got my lungs clear and opened up again. I'm sure I cried a lot during the process. I don't know that I necessarily associated the crying with grief energy, but I felt a lot of sadness come through because you can't breathe, you can't do anything. It's exhausting. But when I had a pneumonia experience a few years ago, then I went, oh, well, I thought I'd cleared all the grief, apparently not. So then I was able to more directly work on the emotion and go, well, what am I grieving? And then memories would come up, and I'd get a little snippet of another timeline where I'd see myself wearing some clothes that were clearly 1700s or 1800s or 1500s. And I go, oh, okay, so this is past life grief. And I'd get some awareness, and I'd hold myself in compassion and transmute the energies and go, okay, but that's not happening now. So I can let go of that, complete it, cry out the tears, and know I'm well. And the important people in my life, God bless them, are all alive, and I'm getting to enjoy them, and so forth. So we go through different kinds of processes depending on the level of awareness we have and our ability to access emotion and access information and be able to ask questions. Is this mine? Is it my ancestors' energy? Is it other timelines? If it's past lives, well, maybe show me, get my guides to show me a few little snippets or movies of what I experienced so they can go, oh, well, that must have been really hard. Hold myself in compassion, and release it and complete it. And then we don't have to keep getting, whatever is going on. I'm sure some of the listeners here probably have some health experiences that maybe you call it chronic, or maybe it's repetitive. Have an experience, heal up, move on with life, but then you're back having a very similar experience. Then in my work, that's where I help people to go track and trace the energy too. Is it other timelines? If so, what's happening? Because I can get those snippets for people. I can see the kinds of experiences that they've had. I can help them feel the emotion, name it, so they can go, oh, well, I know what grief feels like. Okay, well, stay in there, stay in your heart, allow yourself to feel it, because what we're feeling, we're releasing. So miracles come in a lot of different ways. My example of growing something from scratch without otherwise having a lot of emotion, I didn't have any emotion really come up about it other than that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And that tends to be an emotional experience when we're not able to be mobile. But the power of knowing in any circumstance to focus on not what is happening that you're not having so much fun with, but to say, what am I choosing? What would it feel like? What would be going on in my body if I already had perfect health in this aspect? Really feel it and receive it and say, I'm choosing that. Thank you. And then we say to our higher self and our teams, please guide me, please help me. Mother, Father, God, my higher self, this is my choice to have that, healthy experience. So show me the way. And then you will be guided. Could be guided to a specific healthcare practitioner, or you're guided to change your diet, or you get an email and somebody's telling you there's an herb, there's an herb for that. Not there's an app for that, but there's an herb for that, whatever's going on. And then you follow the breadcrumbs. And if emotion comes up, you go, well, what I'm feeling, I'm healing. So I'm releasing it.
That's beautiful. And I think one of the things, so I had my own healing journey that I went through that then opened me up to be a medical intuitive quantum healer myself. And I had to really sit down and say, enough, enough with going to all these doctors and them just wanting to give me, medicine that I was not going to take because I didn't think that that was going to be the answer. Because again, I wanted to know the root cause of what was going on. And one day I just said, I'm not going to go to my weekly chiropractor appointments. I'm not going to, I quit all medical care for what was, going on, fibromyalgia, arthritis, like all the different things that they don't really have cures for anyway. And I was just like, I'm going to heal myself. And it's been like 4 years and I haven't gone back. And I did heal myself through very much like what you're talking about, the visualization, the seeing yourself heal, the all those types of things. And I do that with my clients as well. So I feel that that is such a gift that we have that in a way has kind of been taken away by society with diagnoses sometimes. So sometimes those diagnoses make us feel like a victim, like we can't heal ourselves, or we're just we are at the mercy of that diagnosis and what's going to happen to our bodies eventually because of that diagnosis. And I think what I'm totally hearing you say, and which I've experienced as well, is like, you are not your diagnosis. Like that does not have to be your future. That does not have to be your truth. That there are so many ways that we can actually heal ourselves. And obviously doctors are needed for a lot of things, but there's some things that they don't have the answers to as well. So when we can rely on our own selves to do that healing and to really believe that that's possible, really those miracles, that's when they can come in. Absolutely.
Beautiful story. Yeah, all that self-awareness. And when we follow our intuition, as you did, to say, this does not feel resonant with me anymore, seeing this specialist and then that specialist, I've got to go inside. I want to look for the deepest root causes. And then you start going on that journey while still I choose to heal myself, but more of an inside job. You spoke about, and something you said is key. I'll change the wording a little bit. What was taken away from us was actually what we gave away through the way we were raised and the programming and the understanding that what wasn't shared with us is we're powerful divine beings of light and we can heal ourselves. And had we had that, then we wouldn't have gotten into the Western medical model, which says something's going on in my body. I go consult with an expert, a healthcare practitioner of some sort, who tells me what it is and then tells me what to do about it. And in the Chinese Eastern medicine system, people go to see a doctor to say, tell me how to be healthy. Tell me how to be healthier. Have it check on me and see where my systems tell you that you can observe I'm out of balance in some way. Am I missing something? And so then the practitioner is working with them on guiding them to greater health instead of we've got an illness model going on here, and we're choosing just by the fact that you had your experiences, I've had so many of mine, where we're all going, you know what? And so many people I know are saying, I really just don't resonate with this. Go to the doctor, get a pill, or go to the doctor, have some surgery. There has to be something more going on here. And I'm choosing to get more involved in my own health experience. The other thing that's important to know, and I didn't know this, I didn't realize this until probably 5 years ago, is we're the divine being having the experience in the physical vessel. But who created the physical vessel? And the answer is not us, spirit. It's a an elemental being. And so you can call it your body elemental. Really, it's a higher level of an elemental being. And do we see them? Some people are starting to see them, but just like angels, do we see angels? Some people are starting to see angels. Do we see galactic beings? Some people are starting to see them, but they're there. Nature spirits, some people, when they go out in the forest, they sense something moving by and some twittering and giggling. And as I had one walk in the forest, and I all of a sudden I realized that we weren't alone having a little walk in the forest. And here comes these fairies, twittering by, and I sensed the motion in through my peripheral vision. And they said, "We wondered how long it would take you for you to see us or notice us." Notice us was how they said it. And then I felt this sense of, whoa, this is so cool. I just saw all of these fairies just flying by. But so our bodies are run by the elemental kingdom. And there are spirit beings called body divas, elemental divas, and they are responsible for me. So I have a body diva. I call her body elemental after 3 years, well, many years actually, of starting to talk to my body and saying, body, 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 what would you like me to eat today? Body, 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 what do we need here? And I didn't realize at the time, I thought I'm talking to flesh, but I didn't realize at the time I was actually talking to spirit. I was talking to a being. And so body, 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 we have a body elemental. And it's really one level up from an elemental being, a body diva, who is a higher level. And that diva is responsible for all the elemental beings who make our body, keep our heart pumping, create more blood, fix skin when it's torn and needs, scuffed and injured and needs to be rebuilt. And so there's a whole host of these little beings. So back to my earlier experience of building the tendon, when I said I got a little bricklayer to go down in my body and build my tendon, I was actually not aware of it at the time, but I was actually creating a communication between me and the elemental beings who grow tendons. And they were busy holding in place my tendon. They built it for me during my teenage years, because I grew from a child up to a certain size. And then they just maintained it at that size. And by me saying, I'm choosing for it to be bigger, imagining it already so, setting a clear intention, and then saying, please, little elemental being, go down in there and build it, I was actually communicating with the very beings who could do that for me. So these little helpers, that you can call forth and say, well, I've got a growth here. Well, what would you rather have? No growth there. Or a chip in your tooth. Well, what would you rather have? A tooth that isn't chipped. Or, injured skin. You'd really like it to heal up quickly. Then by communicating with the body elemental community who look after our body, now we're having a loving relationship with the other spirit beings who create my form. And they created out of earth, wind, fire, water, and all the minerals which are earth element that I eat, and all the polyphenols that they say, please eat berries and blueberries and sweet potatoes and orange food and so forth. You can be shown by getting in a good communication and relationship with your body to say, I'm choosing this, guide me. I'm choosing this level of health, guide me. Show me what you require. And then also doing the visualizations to anchor the choice, because we are spirit making choices, having an experience, and the body, the elemental kingdom, is here in service to us to help us create that. And they also bring everything in form, is brought in form by the elemental kingdom. We're not doing it. We don't work with earth, wind, fire, and water. They do. So now we create this higher dimensional loving relationship with the very part of spirit that can actually assist us and support us. So start having conversations, and you can start by just body, body, body. If I'm choosing this for health, show me. I'll take me to the grocery store, or I'll take you to the grocery store and direct my attention in the produce section to what you require. Or go into the supplement section and say, what am I to see here? Show me. When I close my eyes and I say, please show me what would support me with this cough or this whatever experience one is having, or to grow stronger bones. Please show me what is required. I close my eyes and then say, when I open my eyes, please show me where to look and what you wish to draw my attention to. And then now my spirit, my higher self, and my body elemental will steer my eyes and get you looking exactly at. Or you go in the produce section and say, body, 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 what should we eat this week? And then notice, are you guided to see all the orange food? Oh, I keep seeing orange food. Or are you seeing lots of green food? Or are you seeing purple potatoes, purple grapes? Something about whatever's in those purple antioxidants that I need. So when we get into this relationship, that's when you really start to feel more of the miraculous energy of not being alone, in oneness, communicating with the unseen realms. And now it's like, ooh, this is fun. Let's start playing with this.
And I think that summation is just so important right there. What you just said, that we're not alone. We're working together. We, just in that co-creation of the life that we want to live, and just having that open communication. Everything is connected. Everything is in a beautiful harmonic existence when we are really free and open to have those experiences with more than just our own bodies, even though our body communicating with our bodies are very important as well, but just having that knowledge that we are supported and loved and held by so much of this universe and so many eternals around us, and those that love us. So that is such a it's a beautiful message, and I think so healing and helpful for all of our listeners to kind of keep that in mind, that there is so much that can be done and we're not alone and we have help. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to know that and experience that in this human form that we're in. So it's been such a pleasure to have you here today. I think what you've brought up has been so helpful, and I think is going to make people really kind of think about their experiences and how they can really work on healing themselves and reaching out to the universe and all that there is to assist us in that healing. And I know you have a free gift today. Would you mind telling the audience about your free gift?
Yes, I put the 5 steps you can do to transform your energy and in the process transform your health, so that any health experience you're having is rooted in energy somewhere. Is it emotional? Is it beliefs? Is it in the physical? Something's missing. Is it something in our blueprints? I was born with the blueprint of a small tendon. So the tip sheet guides you through the 5 steps you can use to say, okay, I'm having this experience. I prefer this one instead. And then the questions to ask yourself and the levels of awareness to go through. So it's really simple 5-step process, and you can apply it over and over and over again to anything that you're experiencing.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful free gift. I'm sure everyone's going to want to take advantage of that and receive all that you are offering. So thank you so much for being here, and everyone for listening and being a part of this beautiful summit. And go to her free gift, because I think you're going to learn and see and be in such a beautiful alignment with this gift. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much.